This is generally called a temple of power in our country. Fast. It is better to eat bad meat than good grass. Eat meat.
Artem Shirokov. On the internet, he is known as a village monster or a village philosopher. Lev.
In your own house, outside the city, in fact, it's more elite. And living in an apartment is unnatural, in fact. He
Impresses with his strength on the parallel bars, muscle-ups and pull-ups on the bar. He is very strong on the rings. He trains at home in the village. Since
I set all this up for myself, it turned out to be really convenient.
it must be said, rather unusual conditions, but when you watch the whole process live, it is definitely an unusual experience.
Act provocatively.
There are a few episodes with Artyom online, not that many, so I decided to make my own material about him in my own style. About his training and nutrition,
Lard, butter, coconut oil. About
his views on the training process and on pharmacology. Artyom, are you a chemist?
well, chemist or not. In this regard, no one is a saint.
About where it's better for a person to live and why, and about life in general.
Well, now there will be some really great information, honestly. I haven't talked about this anywhere else yet.
I hope you'll find this episode interesting. I'm really looking forward to your feedback. Every like and comment from you, as always, really helps me in my work. So I'm grateful to everyone who watches this episode in full, but since the material turned out to be quite extensive, for your convenience, I'll leave timestamps in the description below the video.
Eat some salo, guys, come on. That's it, and may you be happy. Please listen carefully to what I have to say.
Well, look, it's basically 5 o'clock in the evening now, right? I just got to you and you say you only woke up recently, right? Yeah. Now I need to load up on carbs. So what do you have in your hands and why is it important to load up on carbs right now?
Usually, I load up with some slow digesting carbs and a bit of fast ones, like energy for 10 hours and energy for the next 4 hours. But right now I didn't have time to cook rice, so it's just a fast carb in the form of fruit jelly. Plus a bit of creatine, a little caffeine tablet, just a quarter, and some calcium. So I'm basically ready for the session. I'll do 145 plus on the parallel bars, and on the pull-up bar I hope for 90 plus. I'm not super prepared, it's just a home session. Depending on how it goes, 60 plus on the rings, and on the pull-up bar, muscle-ups 40 plus. Just
To understand when you previously reached these kinds of results, it turns out that max-out sessions are rare for any athlete, right?
for me, they're frequent. Actually, about 60% of my entire training process consists of heavy singles with maximum effort. So because of that, I'm very much used to these intense max-out sessions on a regular basis. I even did some experiments where I would just wake up and go straight to the gym, still half asleep, so to speak, and tried to jump right in, going for maximum weights without any warm-up. Obviously, I don't recommend this to anyone. You need to have a lot of training experience to attempt maximum weights without a warm-up. But for me, the risks were manageable. I did it to be able to switch on at any moment, so I even ran experiments like that. It turns out that the body gets so stressed that you wake up and immediately load yourself up, and as a result, you actually activate even faster than when you know what's coming and you warm up first. For the body, that's not stressful. It's a controlled situation, a routine, and with routine, on the contrary, you start to fall asleep. And here, it's like you woke up just 5 minutes ago, and now they're already making you do pull-ups with maximum weight. And right away,
do your dedicated subscribers or the people who regularly watch your videos ever reach out to ask you about the specific reasons why you choose to live in the quiet village instead of moving to the bustling capital city of Moscow, which is actually located relatively close by and easily accessible?
Usually they don't ask. They just tell you how things should be done,
And
how things shouldn't be done. Everyone knows how to live better.
what do they say? Well,
Usually it's like, you train in a basement, you do renovations, you're wasting your time on nonsense, you're spending your energy on the wrong things, but it's always the same story. But actually, in reality, well, more or less every conscious person knows that living in your own house outside the city is actually more elite. That is, living in an apartment is actually unnatural. If you have enough resources, you should strive for conditions where your body feels as comfortable as possible. That is, somewhere with fresh air, greenery, little noise, little light pollution, and you thrive. And
basically, by contrast, when you go into the city for errands or just to Moscow in general, what do you feel? Well,
Moscow is a beautiful city. I mean, it's really cool there, but only for the first 3 days. After that, everything starts to feel like, like in the song, "The Plastic World Has Won." Everything is so perfect, it's almost nauseating and somehow unnatural. I don't even know how to describe this feeling. It's like being in the Truman Show, you know? That's the kind of sensation I get. Now I have a gym here, but it used to be just my great-grandmother's house. So now where there's a bit of dust, I do muscle-ups. And before, potatoes and preserves were stored here. So everything is as authentic as possible.
Well, this is like the Holy of Holies, right?
We have 60 Warhammer paintings here. It's like our, how do you say, as they say, the stars are unattainable, but we use them to chart our course. Everyone should have some kind of inspiring image in their mind. You can piece it together from literature, from science fiction and so on, from manga. Over there we have Han Mauser, for those who know. Here we have the Emperor of Mankind. So this is a part, it's kind of, it looks different now. Here are the wallpapers, here are the carpets. These are my parallel bars, the very first ones, which were made underground. I did my first 160 kilograms on them. So this is already a part where you can smell Russian architecture. Here we already have Ivan Bilibin, a painting by Ivan Bilibin. If over there we had Varshaver, here we have Ivan Bilibin. This is also the muscle-up zone, meaning the area for strength pull-ups, the bar above the basement so you can do full height strength pull-ups, and the rings are also above the basement so you can do full height strength pull-ups, and the rings are also above the basement so you can do full height strength pull-ups.
And the rings are also above the basement, so you can do full height strength pull-ups. And the rings are also above the basement, so you can do full height strength pull-ups. And the rings are also above the basement, so you can do full height strength pull-ups.
And the rings are also above the basement. Probably a large crowd of people is irritating. Everyone is supposed to have a European-style renovation. I don't know what else people have in their heads. In fact, since I set all this up for myself and I'm working with what I have, it just turned out to be really convenient. For example, it's actually easier to get onto the rings from the step here than it is in a gym from some kind of box, because the step is exactly at the height I need. Everything here is made just for me. So actually, it might look kind of strange, unsafe, or something like that. But considering that I train professionally, it suits me 200%. My warm-up is in the style of GPP. That is, street lifting itself is quite a complete sport, especially if you include squats, of course. The warm-up both loosens you up and at the same time works on those secondary links. So for me it usually lasts about 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes even an hour if something really serious is coming up.
Is that a personal thing, or do you recommend it to everyone?
I recommend it to everyone. Because
Let's put it this way. What do people lose when they come to the gym? Just swing their arms a bit and that's it. Off they go. What exactly?
they often fail to develop their secondary connections and underlying links, which might not become immediately apparent or visible in the short-term horizon or the immediate future, but these elements become crucial over a much more extensive and significant period of time down the road. Eventually, something will inevitably break. That is exactly why it is such a significant thing. It is very easy to underestimate because the problem is not immediately obvious. It is a very important point to consider, and again, the final result is made up of many different components, including extensive equipment optimization. Of course, for any serious shooter, the belt is extremely important. The belt definitely should not be hanging down all the way to your knees. They are usually manufactured quite long. It also should not be sticky. They are usually made of leather by the original manufacturers, but leather is not actually a very strong or durable material for hanging too much heavy weight on it. That's why I made it out of a safety rope. Some foreign company. Maybe it's made by a robot or something. A rope. This is a safety knot for mountaineering. So it can hold about 4 or 5 tons. Or this is also from mountaineering. It has a different name. So here, each loop can also hold about 2 tons. And you can adjust the length, unlike with a chain. All of this doesn't tear your pants, doesn't catch on your skin, holds more weight, and most importantly, the weight distribution is more stable. Because with a chain, something is always crooked, but you need everything to be as symmetrical and even as possible. Perfectionism. The plates also have to be steel, not rubber-coated. Competition plates for powerlifting. Because in street lifting, this is 100,000% relevant. With 100 kilograms on the bars, if you use CrossFit plates, you'd have to do the splits already. That's why the plates aren't rubber-coated. As for the bars, it might seem like every gym has them, but in reality, not every set of bars is suitable for proper training, because you need to lower yourself onto the bars, not jump onto them, and the steps should be high enough so you can climb onto the bars and lower yourself onto them, maintaining full stability. That's why I designed the bars myself and had them custom made for me.
Now, you mentioned perfectionism earlier. So, would you actually call yourself a bit of a perfectionist?
I don't have OCD, of course, but yes, perfectionism is definitely there. But here, it's kind of pragmatic. I mean, it's actually necessary. As for technique, actually no. I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to technique. In terms of technique, I'm actually a pretty sloppy athlete. Basically, I'm a kind of marginal athlete, even though I'm at a professional level. I have high achievements. I don't like competitions because they're limiting. There's a boxer, and then there's, say, some kind of professional killer. One works for results, the other for the rules. That's how it is, actually. Or rather, also for results, but within the context of the rules. I focus more on results. But
Nevertheless, during the recent competitions, I happened to see your competition video.
yes, that was my first competition after powerlifting at the Shirokov Expo.
I thought it was 140 kilograms on the P-bars, right?
Right? 140 or 145, I forget.
I
Wasn't in the best shape there. But it's all justified. It's all understandable. It
was your first competition, right?
That's why I don't like competitions. And
Why did you decide to compete?
because I decided to. I decided I was invited, and it seemed like my comrades in arms were also going to be there. I thought, well, alright, maybe it's a sign from above that I should do it. But since I decided, I went all in at the competition anyway. And that's why I don't like competitions. You have to show up at a specific time and follow specific rules. That already triggers me, I don't like it. I like to catch my peak moments and show my best results then.
All the more so because the Temple of Strength is always open for peak results.
I always prefer to begin my routine with the parallel bars, primarily due to the fact that the specific movement where you can lift the absolute maximum amount of weight will effectively stimulate and awaken your nervous system the most. Carabiners for climbers as well. There's not some kind of super optimization, but they're still lighter than regular construction carabiners. They don't break, their ends aren't sharp, they don't tear your pants, they don't cut the rope.
Your work style is pretty explosive, right? Why is that?
Strength characteristics are also built with good speed. So if you want to lift a lot, you have to do it fast. Because that's a road to hell, my friend. The longer you stay here, the fewer chances you have. So if we're going for the maximum, of course, you have to do it quickly. How?
How did you develop these speed qualities? Is it natural for you, or did you work on it somehow?
It's mostly natural, to be honest. I'm drawn to doing things quickly. Besides the fact that you need to do it fast, I'm just drawn to doing things quickly. And in general, my speed is very good. Speed is an important component of a good PM, but it's not the most important one. That's why there are athletes like Matveev and Verkovnikov who are stronger than me. But at the same time, they're not faster than me. And you also have to keep in mind that the bigger the athlete, the less fast they tend to be. And when you have a lot of muscle, it actually gets in the way of working quickly. It creates internal muscle pressure, increases friction, and you can't move as fast. But at the same time, there's a hydraulic effect, so you pull well, like a tractor. Not a Lamborghini, but a tractor. That's how it is. I weigh 80 kilograms, so, guys. So,
Speaking of size, by the way, please clarify your height and weight.
my height is about 173, weight 80, maximum weight was 95.
When you gained up to 95, what was your goal?
To check how relevant muscle cross-section is for strength sports. So, basically 4 months of bulking, just gaining mass, muscle, not focusing on strength specifics, just optimizing everything for increasing muscle mass, for hypertrophy. I realized that this path isn't really for me. It works for some people, but my way is to optimize and improve what I already have. I take silicone supplements, I try to boost growth hormone with some dietary supplements, optimizing lifestyle, improving cognitive abilities, because again, all of this matters. Even powerlifters and people in strength sports use nootropics, things like Serberlysin, Noopept, and so on. Because essentially you lift with your mind, not just your body.
Do you take any nootropics yourself?
Well, today I took Noopept, which improves blood circulation. And of course, we must mention the well-known medicinal mushroom that became famous after the recent video with Kirill. I am specifically referring to the Panther amanita and the classic fly agaric, both of which are known to significantly help improve mental concentration and focus. But again, they just catalyze the state you're already in. So if you're sleepy, you'll eat it and go to sleep. But if you've already warmed up before your workout and take it, it'll boost you even more.
Do you think nootropics are universal for everyone, or does each person have to find what works for them? So basically the supplements you mentioned, will they work for everyone, or do they just work for you and maybe a few others? And
Speaking in general terms, supplements are the kind of products where any dosage is largely an approximation. Some people will feel the effect, some won't. For some, the standard dosage is way too much, and so on. That's why most nootropics are considered to be placebos. Controlled trials, therapists, medicine, evidence-based medicine, they say they don't work, but they do work. Again, many supplements don't work out of context. You have to integrate them properly and understand what you want from them. Take fly agaric, for example. Many people misunderstand it. Fly agaric gives you exactly what you wanted, what you expected from it. What did you expect from fly agaric? Nothing. It gives you nothing. And the main thing is the aesthetics. Just look at it. Not some cheap chain, but a white rope over there that can hold 5 tons. Not some lousy construction carabiners, but beautiful climbing carabiners. Not some leather belt that will snap at 100 kilograms, but a belt that can hold, I don't know, maybe 20 tons, I don't even know. If my training plan is purely to work up to singles, then I start with singles right from the beginning. 25 kilograms for 1 rep, 50 for 1, 75, 100 for 1. Right now I'm warming up a bit more cautiously because that's how I feel, although I could have just done single reps. And at the same time, I also do high rep sets. A high rep set is doing repetitions up to a maximum of 65 kilograms, and I mostly do this non-stop. Many people think that this ends up being competitive training with your 1 rep max. In reality, I've found that they complement each other very well because if you work with singles for a long time without any volume, your body gets used to it and the collagen structures start to break down, while there's no anabolic response to help you recover properly afterwards. That's why sometimes I'll do singles, then work with triples or sets of 6, and then drop down and do sets of 50 reps. So sometimes I even do what you could call pre-exhaustion, let's call it that, meaning I start with high rep sets. This is actually some really great information, by the way. I haven't shared it anywhere else yet. So I do pre-exhaustion with high reps, and then I move on to sets of 3. So for example, I might do 25 kilograms for 60 reps, 50 kilograms for 35 to 40 reps, 75 kilograms for 20 reps, 100 kilograms for 13 reps, and then I move on to a set of 3, say 125 kilograms for 3 reps when I'm already pre-exhausted. And as I theorize it, this works really well. You get the same effect of muscle fiber recruitment, but at the same time, you can't lift a heavy weight. As a result, you can handle a greater training volume. Then, after you deload, you might find that with 125 kilograms, which you could previously only do for a triple, you can suddenly do 8 reps or so, experiencing a sharp surge in strength. Well, maybe I didn't explain it very well. I'm not exactly a great teacher, but the method itself is really effective. But
Today, for example, you're not doing that because you have a max out session.
today we're just peaking.
I'm curious, let's go back to when you first started the long process of setting up this place. How exactly did the original idea first come to you?
During the difficult period of the lockdown, when you had to find a way to somehow maintain your regular physical training routine, you just did exactly what you could, with whatever equipment you happened to have, in any space that you could possibly find. I got creative, opened up the crawl space, made some parallel bars over it, hung a ring above it, put a pull-up bar on the ceiling, and started training again. And then I really got into it because it actually became convenient for me. Again, you don't waste your energy or focus on the commute or anything else. You just go straight to the gym and train as much as you need for as long as you want. If I want to go at night, I go at night. If I want to go in the morning, I go in the morning. If I want to go both in the morning and at night, I do that. If I want to go 3 times a day, I do that too. So that's it. It saves time and energy. And
What time of day do you usually go?
more often at night.
Why?
Why, I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's just some peculiarity in my head.
Is it that you feel more physically active, like you have more energy? Or is it just that, some people are night owls and that's when they get a burst of energy? A burst of energy?
Yes, it is definitely a sudden burst of energy. This happens because at a certain point in my journey, I began training much more intuitively. When you focus on training intuitively, you are constantly trying to catch your absolute peak physical states. And it just so happens that for me, those moments mostly come alive late at night. But
Just so you understand, Dimitrov isn't that far away. So if you had the desire, you could easily work out somewhere in a gym there, right? I mean, maybe even with some kind of basic CrossFit equipment.
yes, that's exactly what I did. It turned out that I only had to walk 200 meters to the bus stop, then ride for 15 minutes, and the stop was right by the gym. I get off and go train. So it's actually as accessible as possible. Some people in the city have to walk farther than I do and spend more time than I do. So everything is as accessible as possible, but training at home is fun. Alone,
Do you always train here alone?
not alone. I have what we call it the Temple of Strength here. We have parishioners of the Temple of Strength here, meaning these are my students who come to train. So they have keys, they just come, I give them a plan, they train on their own, they've already been instructed.
So, yeah, they have keys? Yes.
Yes,
Do those people live in your small village?
no, they come from the city. How
did such a trusting relationship develop? Well,
again, they're not complete strangers. These are people I know, people who share some history with me or mutual acquaintances, so everyone knows each other. And also, sometimes I host pilgrims from the Temple of Power, meaning people come who just want to spend 3 hours training with me and also have some extra time to talk. For example, someone came to see me from Rostov. Twice people came all the way from the outskirts of Moscow, traveling 3 hours to get here. Once a student from England visited.
listen, if those who come to see you are pilgrims, can I be considered a chronicler who came here to record the story?
The chronicler of the Temple of Siv, perfect.
How much weight was on the previous set?
That was 100 kilograms.
Now it's 120. How does it feel overall? In terms of...
It feels fine. It's just that for the past few months, all my sets have been in maintenance mode. The reason is that my sternum was hurting a bit. It sucks, that's never happened before. And I didn't really stress about it. I just shifted my focus to something more challenging. Well, I didn't know what it was going to be. It was some kind of strange discomfort that just kept me from working at the pace I was comfortable with.
Going back to the topic of weight, so you realize that more weight does not really give you any advantage and you drop down to 80 now, right? I
first dropped to 86 and then down to 80. And
do you plan to stay at this weight?
Well, more or less, but to be honest, it is actually slowly increasing over time, so it is usually hovering somewhere around 80 to 83 kilograms. It is definitely not like I have somehow anchored my body weight at one specific certain point forever. So I'll let it grow, but only if there's an excess. In other words, not intentionally. Since it's a secondary factor for me, I'll just let it grow on its own if it wants to. So it's not that I'm controlling it, I'm actually working on quality. And
weight is already a side effect from the stress the body experiences. Adaptation, right? Goals? What are your goals right now? In
the dips, to beat my record of 170 kilograms. On the rings, to beat my record of 70 kilograms. Online, to beat my record of 50 kilograms. So, to do pull-ups with a hold with more than 100 kilograms. Actually, my pull-ups are really childish. They've always been difficult for me. So there's always room to grow. And if you think you're cool, it's either because there isn't enough competition, or you've just become complacent, and in reality, your ambitions were more animalistic in nature. In other words, your desires weren't poetic enough. That's why I have my own ideal images.
For example, sorry, I'm not familiar with this topic. I must have missed something in life, but I'm interested. What should I watch or read to get into it? Well,
it's Warhammer 40,000. I think most of your audience is already familiar with this part of pop culture. It's both a work of fiction and a huge gaming universe. I haven't read the books because there are so many of them and they're basically written in the studio, but this universe is really fascinating. It has absorbed almost all the mythology humanity has accumulated, as well as some concepts from science fiction. It's a very interesting universe.
Then here's a final question on this topic. Which character from this universe do you like the most, so that those who are familiar with it will understand who you're talking about?
The Emperor of Mankind.
Why?
Because, quite frankly, he is just simply the absolute best there is. He is the strongest, the most deeply spiritual, the most incredibly powerful psyker, and the most formidable mentally. He truly represents the ultimate archetype of everything that is best within all of humanity, so to speak.
That's going to be it, right?
Yes, that's going to be 140. Before some weird stuff happened, my parallel bars were going extremely well. I mean, I thought I was about to hit new results right then. I was doing 150 for 2 reps, and then something went wrong. So I take this with humility. True love will teach you humility because there will be a lot of all sorts of crap. And if you were, so to speak, dishonest, then you'll fall off. Because, your favorite thing, your loved one, anything at all. Anything you love will bring you a lot of happiness and a lot of problems. you love, you want to make progress, but something always goes wrong. To
Talk about your best results. Just in case someone isn't aware, let's go over your various movements and your peak performances.
on the parallel bars, 170 kilograms yay, and for the rings, a total of 70 kilograms. Then for straight bar strength, 50 kilograms, followed by pull-ups on the bar, with a hold of 100 kilograms, and finally chest to bar touches, 110 kilograms, with
That kind of, standard weights, do you work with those? Well,
I don't do deadlifts. I very rarely ever perform squats. I do a significant amount of accessory work. I work quite a lot on my shoulders. And I don't limit myself to just this very limited and narrow field of specialization. And if you keep working purely as an athlete, doing everything you're supposed to, you'll actually just be lying to yourself, and your training process will stall, because you simply won't be interested, psychologically. That's why I do a lot of interesting things, but not too much. It'll be 145.
what do you say about 140? Expectation.
Matt, nothing special. This certainly hasn't been my strongest period in terms of physical strength, but it should be sufficient for now, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm curious, you look great, you're in good shape. Are you concentrating your efforts entirely on strength results? Or do you also have some specific visual or aesthetic objectives, like a particular desire to improve your overall physical appearance?
Yes, I agree 100%, and I mean that sincerely. The strength results I see, my physical appearance, my overall mindset, and even the deep feeling of my soul, every single one of these aspects is incredibly valuable and important to me in my daily life. Lifting the iron off the ground is my top priority. No, honestly, everything is important to me. And of course, appearance too. I just can't feel mentally and spiritually okay if I'm too fat. Well, too fat for me basically means I've already put on some extra weight. I feel like I'm straying from my ideal way of behaving, my ideal shape and everything else, and it already starts to make me feel bad. I start to get this inner itch. My body...
Is it lame? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's going strong. There aren't any unrealistic expectations. It used to be
145 now. 45 now.
150, an important point that I realized just recently. You can't be someone who loses often, because if you keep losing now, you get used to it, and in general you shouldn't lose at all. All that talk about how the strong one is the one who knows how to lose, it's nonsense. Losing can actually hit you really hard. If you just mess up a set, your expectations aren't quite met, and immediately your hormonal status drops. And when this happens over and over again for a long period of time, say for half a year, it can show up in the amount of weight you progress with, because your mental state sends a signal to your hormonal system, to the endocrine glands. Hormones send signals to the rest of the cells about how the body should develop, so your training process should be built on win after win after win, and you should really enjoy yourself. That's why I generally recommend that people share their results and get some kind of approval. You need to appease your inner monkey so that it feels good. Each of us has brain structures that are still wild, and you just need to learn to control your animal side and use it. That's why you can't allow yourself to lose. Find motivation, even if you're still weak. Many people, for example, say, I won't share my results because I'm still weak. There are guys who can lift 10 times my weight, for example. No, guys, you need to learn to enjoy it right now. Come up with some story for yourself about why you're already good enough. And then, over time, you'll actually become really cool.
I haven't looked at the comments under your videos. Tell me, do you have haters?
Well, there are the most haters on YouTube. I was actually surprised. On TikTok, you'd think, well, TikTok is kind of something primitive.
I recently heard that supposedly there are fewer negative reactions on TikTok because the moderation is stricter there.
Maybe, yes, maybe the moderation is stricter there. But honestly, YouTube really shocked me.
What do they hate on you for?
Whether it is having long hair, being in the wrong setting, or really just anything at all. In fact, that is exactly the main thing we are looking at here. I realized why they hate, because I act provocatively. I mean, let's say before, if someone straightens their shoulders and walks proudly, it means they're throwing down some kind of challenge, like they're claiming a high place in the hierarchy, right? And either they'll beat everyone or they'll get beaten. Like, who the hell do you think you are showing off here? So, in my videos, I end up showing off my strength, behaving in a way that triggers people's inner monkey. Yeah, you with your hair, yeah, you training in the basement, yeah, you're lying about the weights you lift, whatever, really. The main thing is to calm your own inner monkey, the one that's being challenged, essentially.
How does your inner monkey react to such comments? Because you say that you need to post in order to get some kind of approval, to accumulate it and use it. When, on the contrary, you receive negativity, how do you react to it? Maybe how you used to react and how you react now.
In the moment, it always triggers aggression in me. It's like, I don't know, getting burned by something. The reaction comes first, and only then do you become aware of it. I just go in the morning and block everyone. It's just really convenient there. Through YouTube Studio, you go in and immediately block the commenter, their comment, and all their other comments.
But you do block them, right?
I don't stand on ceremony with anyone. I'll say something that might sound harsh. I don't need people who have mixed feelings about me when there are plenty of people who are ready to treat me with 100% approval.
Are you satisfied with 150 kilograms?
Yes, I'm actually very satisfied. Right now, I barely felt the difference of 5 kilograms. That's a good sign.
Are there people who say, hey, do you think too much of yourself? Who do you think you are?
Yes, they do say that.
I
get such joy when someone writes, yeah, you really think a lot of yourself. That's the kind of arrogant, insulting comment people add to an already offensive thread. In other words, an insulting comment always adds fuel to the fire. When someone posts an insulting comment without any arguments, it just shows that their inner animal instincts have been triggered. And since the internet allows everyone to express themselves, people who are actually at a lower hierarchical status in real life, well, they would never dare say something like that to me in person. The internet makes this possible. It suits their inner monkeys. Got it, Yuri. There's even a bit of pleasant anticipation. Well, it'll be a little easier now. And now it turns out you can even go for 160 and give it a try.
How often do people write to you, Artyom, asking if you're on steroids?
Well, lately for some reason it's been pretty often. Although before people hardly ever asked. Again, not because probably whether I'm on steroids or not. Again, this touches the inner monkey. Someone managed to do it, I couldn't. Why? Let's calm down and come up with a nice story. Why? Not because I'm lazy, not because I don't do the same training volume as this person. Not because I'm thinking about how to make progress, but because he's a cheater. It's simple. That's it. The monkey inside is calm. You go have some tea, eat some jelly candy. So, guys, honestly, this happens to absolutely everyone. There are no saints in this regard. Professional athletes especially love to accuse other professional athletes as well, to justify why someone else is stronger. I'll go even further. Usually professional athletes are even more sensitive to results, and that's why sometimes they really surprise you. Like, how is that even possible? I mean, dude, you're a top athlete, you have great results, so you must be smart. So why are you reacting in such a primitive way right now?
Well, about nootropics, you just mentioned that you add them because it's important. And what's your stance on hormonal drugs?
What's my stance? That my strength is made perfect in weakness. In the short term, it's a sharp boost, progress, and all that. But in the long run, it leads to problems and so on. And I compare it to sakura and chamomile. Chamomile grows quickly, blooms fast, and smells nice. Sakura grows slowly, but when it does, there are 1,000 blossoms. Such beauty, right? and the tree stands for a very long time. So I want to be like the sakura, not the chamomile. So basically, nootropics and supplements are all about optimization, right? Just try to improve with the resources you have.
I just mean you call yourself that. In professional sports, for professional athletes, doping is actually quite common. But in your own status as a professional, as you see yourself, you manage without it.
I see myself as a professional based on my results. That's why I call myself a marginal athlete. In other words, I'm a professional but a marginal athlete, since I don't go to competitions. People might say, "Are you crazy? An athlete is only someone who competes." Guys, I don't care what anyone thinks. I consider myself a professional because most of my life revolves around all this progress, no matter how primitive that might sound, and optimizing my life.
So what do you do in life besides sports? I mean, for example, do you have a job or something that generates your income?
My entire livelihood is derived from doing absolutely everything I love. It's like magic. It sounds like a fairy tale. I do what I want, and that puts bread on my table. So that's the fairy tale. I just don't betray myself. Guys, sorry, but I'm going to quote the Bible here. I can quote it. "The bird neither sows nor reaps, yet God provides for it." Or look at the most beautiful flower. Do you see how beautiful it is? Even King Solomon in all his splendor was not as beautiful as this flower. So why are you all jumping out of your skin just to earn something and so on? Relax, enjoy yourself. Create, be like children. That's my philosophy.
Well, earning money is connected to sports. Accordingly, sports bring pleasure during training and as a result also generate income.
Yes, including through sports. For me, my earnings are still kind of blurred, not just from one thing. Some people are interested in me as a person. For example, people buy consultations from me and we hardly talk about sports there at all. I really, like a psychotherapist or like a priest in a church, start giving a sermon, explaining something, telling stories to help the person. So I have different interests, they have different priorities and so on, and all these interests in essence are monetized by me. And if you look at the personality as a whole, Artem Shirokov's qualities, see my qualities, whether physical, intellectual or spiritual. If you want to get something from me, you can come to me and receive it. That's it, that's my income. So I want to be valuable as a person.
How do you typically feel and think about money? And do you have any specific material goals you want to achieve?
I personally view money as a very useful tool. It's very hard for me to motivate myself with money. Well, in principle, it's impossible to be motivated by money. You can be motivated by what you want to do with that money. So I'm pretty calm about it. Not aggressive enough, I would say, but I try to work on that.
Work on it, right?
Yes, I try to work on it. Money is power. It's one of the manifestations of strength, of the ability to obtain it. In other words, to be a conqueror of resources. And I understand that in this regard, I'm not aggressive enough, and that will change, essentially. A lack of material wealth is your weakness, and you need to compensate for it so that everything goes well for you. At the initial stage, I want to be so financially secure that basically I can easily meet my own needs and those of my close circle, so that it doesn't interfere with creativity, so that we can be free people, so to speak. You understand what I mean, right? The next goal is precisely to take a truly authorial position, when you no longer think about how to arrange things for yourself so that everything completely satisfies you. You get a nice house, cars, and so on, but the point is to become a creator.
I just mean that there are people for whom it is important to become rich. It's part of their overall life fulfillment. They want to be rich, they want to be well off, to be able to afford a lot. There are people who want to become rich, specifically in the sense of simply becoming free. In other words, they don't really need all the trappings of a wealthy life, but at the same time, if they wanted something, wanted to be somewhere, or to get something, they could do it. So you consider yourself more among the second group, right? Yes?
More among the second group. Again, there are people for whom resources are an end in themselves. They end up being dependent on these resources, and that means it's a weakness. My goal is strength. A resource is a tool. As long as you perceive the tool as your slave master, meaning you are the slave, I want, well, no matter how pretentious that may sound. Right now, the expectations were a bit higher. I think it was a little easier before. But those were expectations that had already been formed after 155. And expectations that were still being adjusted according to my mood. I was in the right mindset. It was really good, but I still got a bit stuck. Although, overall, 160. At this stage, that's a good result for me. There's a zoologist named Edgar Morris. He has a series of books that he wrote, The Human Zoo, The Naked Ape. In them, he looks at humans from a zoological perspective and explains why cities are constructed incorrectly. He compares it to animals in a zoo who develop psychological problems because they are torn from their natural biological environment. Our bodies are part of the biological environment, balanced with it, and placed in unusual conditions. So when you live in the city, it seems cool, there are lots of stimuli, lots of opportunities, but in reality you feel not so great. And that's why there are countries with a high standard of living, but also a high suicide rate.
Definitely. Right now, the environment around us is a more natural setting for life.
Of course, where you can see the horizon, where there's no noise from trains or airplanes.
Just to understand, do you want to spend your whole life, maybe not exactly here, but say in nature, in a countryside setting like this?
Yes, 100%. Well, to actually live here, to spend most of my time here, that's for sure. In conditions that feel natural to me. But there's also the factor of the moderately continental climate here. It just feels natural to me. I mean, say living somewhere like Dubai or somewhere in Asia, it would be too hot for me there. I just wouldn't feel well. Last year in Kamchatka, I was comfortable there too, because the climate is also moderate. It's a continental climate. Otherwise, it's just self-deception and self-destruction. And since I'm also an athlete, I have to take into account the needs of my inner animal, so to speak, to make sure it's as comfortable as possible in order to thrive physically.
In one of your videos, in a segment, well, I told you that unfortunately I haven't watched your videos, so that I could come to you with a clean slate. In one of your videos, you said that at every moment you have to think about what you're doing, what you're occupied with, and what you're doing to achieve results. Well, that sounds pretty perfectionistic.
Actually, this isn't professionalism, it's what every person should strive for. This is what consciousness is, when all your actions are aligned with your goals. In other words, this is true agency. It just sounds that way. If a person starts to obsess over it in some artificial way, of course they'll go crazy. That's more like being local, really. It has to come about organically. In other words, there has to be a certain level of personality where you do it simply because. This is called remembering death. Like, go take a cold shower, or, I don't know, walk on coals, or if someone wakes you up at 3 in the morning, you'll experience stress. Any stress on the body, it immediately starts calculating ahead. But what if I experience stress, say you pour cold water over yourself? You experience stress, your body understands that if you stay in such water for an hour and a half, you'll die, so you get a surge of energy. On a subconscious level, you remember about death and immediately become more effective. You recall what's important. In other words, that life is passing by. That's what I mean.
Someone, let's say. So intermittent fasting or hunger is also used apparently to give the body similar impulses. Have you practiced anything like that?
Up to periodic fasting, not even 16/8, including that. So that's why I'm also talking about fast carbs. They really just make you sluggish, lose your edge, and as a man.
They relax you?
Yeah, they relax you, you forget about death. All energy foods. It's the most energetically accessible food possible. We live in warmth, better than monarchs of past centuries. It's like the body thinks it will live forever, and then suddenly you hit it with a cold shower, or a fasting day, or you announce a 2-day fast. All at once. You feel invigorated, you remember what you need, or it's like a magical kick from fate. So I mean, guys, it's all obvious. It's about remembering what you want.
You need to give yourself that kick regularly?
Yes, you have to know how to do that, but you can't just force it artificially. You need to create the right conditions for it to happen. How do you do that? So that your inner monkey believes it. That's an important point too. Otherwise, you're just forcing yourself too hard. You need to do it carefully. Be clever about it. You have to trick it. So imagine a cold shower. You step in and suddenly turn on the cold water. You get drenched, you feel stressed, and you turn it off. That's it, you're done, right? But if you turn it on slowly, you're more likely to want to shut it off. At that moment, you're basically forcing yourself too much. You need to make it a short action, after which the consequences follow and your inner monkey just takes over. So you need to set real, ultimate conditions, not artificial ones.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
25.
The number 25.
Someone from the outside might say, like, at 25 he's already talking too smart, saying all this stuff. And also, first go live your life, gain some experience, and then accordingly you can tell others how to live.
As they say, you will know them by their deeds. So just look at the results. Sometimes I might say something hastily or get too theoretical, meaning it doesn't really match my actual achievements. Just let that pass you by. If I say something that directly relates to my own achievements, then that's it. My expertise is confirmed. So it's all simple and straightforward. Don't look at age, look at achievements, at what the person actually represents.
So, what can you say about this exercise in general? Why do you do it? How difficult is it for you personally?
For me, it's very easy, that's why I do it. Why do I do it? It's just something that comes from the soul. Simply because I like it, because I can, because I'm genetically predisposed to this movement.
So, do you have any kind of gymnastics background at all?
No, none of the elements from high bar or rings. I don't know how to do anything.
But still,
The cross, maybe? The cross?
I never went to any classes?
No. Actually, on the contrary, I'm really stiff for gymnastics. And street lifting isn't gymnastics, and what I do on the rings isn't gymnastics either. So here, on the contrary, you need to be as... gymnasts work, in such a distal range of motion, everything on straight levers. But here...
Do you think it's dangerous in terms of injuries or not?
Everything's dangerous. If you're careless, you can even break a pinky. That's why you go from simple to complex, from complex to heavy. In any movement, in any activity. That's it. Well, with rings, basically, if you can do it, you can do it. If you can't, then you just won't be able to. That's it. But there are movements where you try, and if something goes wrong, even though you seem able to do them, if something goes off, it could be a disaster.
Right before the workout, I saw it just walked in and you're really ready to work after a workout like that. A routine so that, let's say
After training, it's mainly a protein meal. So, what I use right after a workout, just to get something in quickly, is an isolate, some high quality one, and those 9 amino acids. What are they called? Not BCAAs, but the 9 essential ones. Well, plus BCAAs, they're kind of, how to put it, they help relieve a bit of pain syndrome, reduce muscle soreness so you can handle a greater training volume as a result. What else do I take? I throw in some arginine. Basically, I take a bunch of powders while I'm getting ready, and then I prepare a proper meal. Like eggs, meat. Today it'll be beef, heart, organ meats, which are actually pretty cool, even better than skeletal muscle meat. I'd even say that heart, beef or veal heart, is actually tastier. Well, at least for me, I still prefer liver, but damn. It's got all the B vitamins, all the nutrients, iron, vitamin C, everything you can think of. It's basically a natural multivitamin. Seriously, it's healthy food. These days, everyone is being taught to eat cabbage for some reason, and for some reason everyone believes it. Eat greens, and you'll be healthy. What nonsense. The closer an animal or living being is to us in evolutionary terms, the more bioavailable it is for us. It's simple. Boil it, cook it.
I just mean, how do you feel about the fact that nowadays it's hard to find animal products that are natural, pure, and free from chemicals? Do you usually get your fresh food here? Directly from a local farmer? Or perhaps from a large grocery store?
Mostly I go to the butcher shop and pick up something there. At the market, sometimes you can't find anything good. Well, yes, of course. Ideally, you need to choose carefully. Look at the meat. Check what color the fat is. If it's snow white, that means it's empty. It means the animal was only fed compound feed, wasn't let out to pasture, and it didn't accumulate many micronutrients. So there are all sorts of nuances like that. You really need to know how to choose. But for me, somehow, it's better to eat. It's better to eat bad meat than good grass. That's my philosophy. It is actually slightly more different than I had wanted, and admittedly a bit more difficult. But taking everything into account, I believe that overall it is perfectly fine.
So when you talk to some athletes, you don't see that, right?
Well, I do talk to professional athletes, but those are the ones who are definitely more serious athletes than they are mere showmen.
So this whole blogger scene, that topic isn't interesting or close to you, right?
It's not interesting, not close to me, it's too superficial. It's done purely for some kind of emotion. There's no philosophy or anything like that there. It's just like that. And usually the people who watch this are young guys who just get inspired by it at first. So it's not that I don't respect them, but they have their own world and I have mine. So we don't really cross paths. Basically, I wasn't upset. Well, of course, it's unpleasant. I'm saying these are the kinds of defeats you need to avoid. But since today is such a special day, and Andre came, we're trying to show our best. And with the rings, well, if on the parallel bars you can feel like, that's it, you can stop there. Because it's a stable structure and there are fewer demands on technical skill. But on the rings, if you make a little mistake somewhere, or you don't hit the right angles, and you won't be able to get past that most difficult point anymore. So here, even if you seem strong enough, maybe it's not quite enough. If something goes wrong, then that's it. So maybe the value is at 65. But to try...
When it comes to nutrition, maybe you often get asked how to keep your abs visible and still get results. It seems like you need to increase your calorie intake to lift more, but judging by you found a balance. In
principle, my diet is based on what I eat. Foods with high biological value, which are dense in micronutrients and just in macros as well. Proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and specifically micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, and so on. I have high quality fats in my diet, meaning both saturated fats of animal origin and plant-based fats. Lard, butter, coconut oil, high quality chocolate. Although I don't eat chocolate, that's just as an example. In other words, I don't eat vegetable oils. They worsen your condition because of the unsaturated fats, so instead it's cod liver. Cod liver, again, an important detail, since I'm explaining, it should be sealed, not in a transparent jar and not from poachers. There should be no oxygen inside, because saturated fats are liquid and they oxidize. The cod liver should be placed on the ship, put into the oven, and everything should be done without oxygen. When you open it, it's fresh, not oxidized, and doesn't smell like fish at all. Capsules, if you eat omega capsules and bite into them and they smell like fish, that means they've oxidized. You can simply buy a quality cod liver from Norway. Moving on to carbohydrates. If you eat fast carbohydrates, they are quite unnatural. I mean, where in nature would you find such a large amount of fast carbohydrates? You still need energy, right? It has to be unpacked from something, somehow extracted, and it will enter the bloodstream gradually, and that's more natural. Everything that is more natural means we are better adapted to it. It will lead to your well-being. So if you eat, say, marshmallows, well, not just eat them, but eat them before a workout, then we immediately go and use up that energy. Otherwise, it's destructive. Everyone understands the drowsiness and so on. And a man even becomes less of a man. In other words, there's no drive. So just be careful with fast carbohydrates. The standard carbohydrate loading is done with rice, white rice. Again, you don't need to use overly complex carbohydrates like red rice, brown rice, some kind of birdseed or anything like that. That's also destructive. We don't need that. That's a lot of fiber. It'll take you a whole day to digest, so you really don't need to go there at all. And
you eat rice and it starts working right away.
White rice is great, a perfect carbohydrate. White rice.
Let's do this. Name a few foods or supplements that you would recommend everyone cut out of their lives.
Cut out?
Yes.
From
what should people give up? 100%. For those men who are watching us and want to be healthy and strong?
Vegetable oils, all processed foods. In other words, unnatural products that have been invented. Practically all of them. And excessive consumption of fiber. Because now, for some reason, it's being advertised, but there's nothing good about it either.
You mean greens? What kind? And
eat moderate amounts, but don't assume it's healthy just because of the fiber. Eating 400 grams of vegetables a day is actually destructive.
Plant oils, just to clarify, like flaxseed, hemp oil, all those that are marketed as healthy, they go in the same category, right?
Yes, you can put olive oil in that same category too. Again, as long as it's not 100,000 years old, hasn't gone rancid and so on. Olive oil is very good. Those flaxseed, hemp oils and so on, and the like. Just eat some lard, guys, seriously.
We've listed the foods you should definitely avoid and the ones you should definitely add. Maybe aside from those macronutrients that you mentioned.
Beef liver, liver from other animals. In general, it's a treasure trove of micronutrients because it's a biochemical factory and also a storage of micronutrients in our bodies, as well as in the bodies of other mammals. Then there's cod liver as a source of unsaturated fats and animal fats. That's it, and you'll be happy.
When you originally talked about the pull-up bar, which one did you mean? This one that's under you now, or the one in the room next to the parallel bars?
On this pull-up bar, we do muscle-ups because it's in the basement here, so you can do them at full height.
And
These two pull-up bars, the ones in the room and in that small room, those are for pull-ups. So now I'm planning to do muscle-ups with about 40 kilograms added weight on the pull-up bars. I'm basically already warmed up. I'll start right away with 35, 40, and then see how it goes. And if I have any strength left, I'll check my pull-ups on the bars. So I did 40, I did 45. It was tough. At 45, my grip gave out. Is this
the sign?
It's a sign. No, well, I feel like 50 probably won't happen. And if it doesn't, it'll be another wound to the heart. Another one, we don't leave things to chance. Don't push harder. That's it. Now let's quickly check out the pull-up bar.
While we're in the yard, it's an incredibly spacious area. Actually, meticulously maintained, and really quite beautiful. Tell me, is there a farm here? Maybe a vegetable garden or some animals? Or is it just for pleasure? I see fruit trees. Is there a lot of work to do on the property or not?
There's a lot of work, even though there's nothing here. There are only currant bushes, fruit trees, a small greenhouse, and some garden beds. But even just mowing these 25 sotkas every week is a lot.
I was just about to say yes, everything is trimmed.
That already takes effort, or you have to hire someone and so on. You have to prune these fruit trees every year. So there's plenty of work to do. But again, as everyone already knows, it's agrofitness, which is good for your health. Although in the past, when my great-grandmother was alive, this whole huge area was planted with potatoes. And she could almost single-handedly, even at 80 years old, dig it all up, sort it, carry it to the cellar, hill it up, and haul it around. People from the previous generation are a different breed. In black currants, there are 2 daily values of vitamin C in 100 grams. When I eat it, I really do recover faster. Since my training process is based on high intensity, I often experience under-recovery, especially in collagen structures. It's not that my muscles hurt, like the soft tissue, but rather it feels like my whole body is like a callus. And with black currants, the process of collagen structure recovery, it seems to me, happens faster, because vitamin C is exactly what's needed for absorption. Well, for absorption of primitive proteins, gelatin, and so on, and for the restoration of collagen structures. That's why we restore the walls of blood vessels and also boost immunity.
So instead of going to the pharmacy, we go to the market for black currants.
You have to keep in mind that natural components are absorbed better. Let's start right away with 75, because we've already warmed up on the way out. Today I'm working with a narrow grip, meaning I switch it up. Sometimes it's wide, sometimes narrow, sometimes I put plates on my legs. So when I get tired in one technique, I change the angles, which helps me maintain my performance and keep up my working volume. That's kind of a life hack. Right now, I feel I can show my maximum strength with a narrow grip, but sometimes it's with a wide grip. On the contrary, plates on the legs. That particular round resulted in a total of 90 points being added to the scoreboard for our team's overall standing in this competition, which is a fantastic result for us at this stage. Pretty decent, considering all the preliminary fatigue. Everything's going well, and of course, the file on the rings is starting to make itself felt. Like I said, that's why you have to allow for files. There's nothing good about not being able to stop in time. It's just risking injury. And also for your overall peace of mind, which affects your body. At that point, the 100 kilograms didn't go as planned. In other words, there were barely any touches. I had to change things up beforehand. I was already tired and everything was off. Overall, in general, we tried our best for the video, so to speak. I'm not Andre.
Listen, well, that's impressive. Really impressive. At the very least, I've never seen a complex like this in my life before. And to do it just like that, on the spot, and considering that, again, look, you and I didn't even agree on a date in advance. Yeah, considering when I would arrive, and the fact that literally just yesterday I asked, okay, what if I come the next day? And basically, I just don't know if this was a walkthrough. Was it something you had planned or not? And if it wasn't even planned, yeah, then
Well, we tried to show ourselves as best we could. Did what we could at this moment. Well, that's it, basically. The rest is up to the public to judge. Fresh air. Barak has arrived. Rosen brought it. Like 3 dietary supplements, even 4, tested for blood. Mumio and the name I can't even remember what it's called. Kangat Ali Ashwagandha. And something else there. Well, like almost up to 20% is possible. Actually, this is from the outside. So let's optimize in...
and that is the end. So what are we eating for dinner?
Feel heart, period. The third heart.
Why the heart specifically? Listen, you know, it's like after a hunt you have to eat the animal's heart. There's something to that, right? Yeah.
There's something to that. Eat some meat. We're making ourselves into predators.
Well, you've already got a predator here. Why is the dog named Frodo?
He's like a hobbit, small with red paws.
There's something to that, right? But listen, I'll tell you something important. Frodo did a truly remarkable thing. He's a genuine champion, Bis. And so are you. But just for those who, say, might have missed that specific point, let's reinforce it right now. What exactly is the significant nutritional advantage of choosing beef heart over a standard beef steak?
Personally, I like the taste more. Well, secondly, organ meats are generally a bit richer in micronutrients than skeletal muscle. Plus, they're quite tender, and again, they're cheaper than steaks. I like the taste more, they're cheaper, and they're just a bit healthier in some ways. Well, zinc, again, you shouldn't just take it mindlessly. You need to get tested sometimes for iron, zinc, copper, because zinc can deplete them.
Do you ever get any tests done, like in general?
Well, I sometimes get tested for zinc, copper, iron, and also for hormones. It's because I feel good, everything's fine with me.
Have you ever checked your testosterone even once?
Yeah, I have, but that was probably about 2 years ago. It was 24 exactly, maybe, so nothing special. Basically, I need to boost it.
What do you think?
Well, I probably didn't pound it enough, because when I really do, meat flies in chunks all over the walls. But here Amri put the camera down, and I didn't want to get it too dirty.
Hey, but imagine the special effects if actual chunks of meat flew into the camera.
My hand even gets tired?
Of course, I'd have to clean it up, but then people would say it's straight out of Hollywood. What do you think? Are you going to try it? Are you going to try it? So, does he eat stuff like this?
Of course he does.
You know what I like even more? Specifically about the countryside vibe, specifically the evenings. I mean, some people might say mosquitoes maybe. One just landed on me actually, but first of all the sounds, and secondly...
Yeah, there's something about evenings in the village. I love going outside.
The smell, you just can't capture it through the camera.
Sometimes out in the field I even get goosebumps. I can really feel the energy.
Yeah.
Evening in the village is like a time of power, as they say.
It's mosquito time. Let's not romanticize it, they really swarm you right away. No, but still, there's something about it, you just need to...
You just need to move away from the mosquitoes.
Yeah, all those plant-based things, you know, like lavender or something else natural. There are things that repel them, and that's it, you just sit and enjoy yourself. Right.
This was a big episode about Artem Shirokov. Write in the comments what you think about Artem, about his training, about his temple of strength, right? About that home gym of his where he lifts those unbelievable weights. What do you think of a place like that for training? Would you like to work out there? Do you share Artem's views on the advantages of living outside the city in the countryside, or do you prefer city life more? City dweller, nutrition is a separate topic altogether, so we have plenty to discuss. I would really appreciate your feedback. Every like and comment from you really helps me in my work. I am grateful to each of you for your support, and I am grateful to Artem for welcoming me into his temple of strength and sharing his story. It was interesting for me to learn more about him and his views on life. I hope you found it interesting too. Subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you for watching.